Everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Melina Brann. I am your Director of Policy and Advocacy. This is my first town hall, so bear with me while I kind of get the groove of this. And yeah, Dwayne, you have anything you want to add for right now?
Just very excited to see everyone. Dwayne Brishak, Executive Director here. I know you're probably on because you know that there's... Okay. Sorry, we had an unmuted line, but we're excited, and we know you're probably here knowing that there are tons of policy things happening at the state and federal level. So we're going to hopefully at least touch base on all of those today. And if you have questions, drop those into the chat box. We'll also make sure, like Daniel said, that this is available online after as well.
All right, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, and just like right off the top, I am kind of like, I'm going to give you an overview on things, and if I miss something, please feel free again, drop it in the chat, or at the end of each section, I'll give a little time for some questions. So today's objective, we're going to explore what social workers can do in the legislative arena and with political efforts. We're going to give you some updates on the 2023 budget. We have some social workers running for office across the state, so we'll go through that. And then we'll talk about our reproductive justice that's happening, that's the hot topic, so nationally and statewide. We have some national updates, including our code of ethics that is going to be updated. So Dwayne will give you some more information on that. And then some exciting new updates for the Licensure Compact. And then, of course, we're going to wrap it up with ways to get involved. Okay, so why should social workers be politically involved? Well, politics, it really impacts everything that we do, especially as social workers. In our code of ethics, it requires us to respect cultural and social diversity and work towards preventing and eliminating exploitation in all the communities we serve, especially with discrimination. And really, if we think about it, politics is an overarching umbrella of everything that social work touches, whether that is children, women, LGBTQ, if you're doing casework, if you're doing clinical work, all of that involves some kind of policy that is controlling that or revolving around that. And so really being politically involved applies to all social workers. And, are we fully addressing all of our clients' needs if we are not also addressing the issues that are kind of making all of these other issues bubble up? I know we all have heard this like a billion times, but I really just wanted to reiterate that it is in our code of ethics, and we are happy to help you be involved with politics and the legislature. So some barriers that social workers typically have to being politically involved are broken up into internal and external. So internal, sometimes we think that it's not super relevant to like the clinical work that we're doing, especially if we're really clinically involved. A lot of politics is high level stuff, and we feel like it's not super relevant to the exact work that we're doing. Sometimes we feel like we're not competent enough to be involved in the conversations that are happening in the legislature. But really, as we like to say in the office, fake it till you make it. No one really knows what they're doing. We're all just kind of going with it, especially in the macro sphere. Like sometimes you just got to go with the flow. And with that, we have limited macro education in a lot of our programs, especially in the ones that are advanced generalists, like the one that I went to. So I had to learn all this on the fly. And then there's this internal belief that politics are distasteful. I think a lot of us grew up with parents or in the era where you don't talk about politics, it's really taboo. But really now that we're getting into like showing how everything is really impactful these days, it's not distasteful, it's just a part of life. And then some external barriers are there's misunderstanding about the laws about nonprofits and what they can do in politics. And, you know, if you have questions about that, please feel free to reach out because we can really kind of get that straight for you and kind of figure out what's going on. And then there's the Hatch Act and government employees. So there's this misunderstanding that government employees can't be politically active, but it's just during your working hours that you can't do that. So there's lots of ways to be involved. And so why do politics matter? Well, policy equals funding, really. Funding affects us all. Every day of our lives, I know all of us social workers are talking about funding, funding, funding. We could do X, Y, and Z with more funding. And that's really where politics comes in. We just went through this whole budget cycle where there's billions of dollars being allocated to social justice causes. And as long as we have a voice in that, then we can get more money for our communities, our organizations, and make a bigger impact. The philosophy and values of office holders are really pushed through the policies that they're making. As we all know, and we can see right now, especially with the Supreme Court, their values are really showing through on what policies they are taking up and what policies they're pushing forward. Shifts in power impact public policy a lot. You know, you can see it every time we get a new governor, there's immediate changes that go through, and we need to be a constant voice in those leadership positions to make sure that we are advocating for our communities and our clients. And there really is an ability to make an impact, especially when we are all together and we use our collective voices to kind of make sure that our needs are being heard. And then, of course, politics have a long-term effect. Think about everything that Reagan was putting in and passing back then is still affecting us right now. So it's important, again, to have social workers who understand how all these policies are impacting the clients on the micro and macro level, really letting legislators know that like this is what's happening and this is how it's impacting our clients, and maybe we can change their minds. So what can we do? Step one, stay informed. You guys are doing that. You're already on the call. It's a good first step. One of the things that I am always asking you to do through emails is to be an advocate through writing emails, writing letters, making phone calls, doing that kind of stuff. Testifying at public or legislative hearings. It seems really scary to do, but I promise it's not. We're really just like speaking from your clients' experiences. What we do when we testify is to give the experience of someone that the policy is affecting, so the legislators can understand really what would happen in that. And then, of course, we want you to volunteer or donate to PACE or a specific candidate, and then we will have some more information about how to do that later on in this presentation. And then, of course, voting, it always matters. And then we want you to run for office. There's an uptick in social workers running for office, but I think we need more. Honestly, I think maybe all elected officials should be social workers, but that's just my opinion. I would love to see that. I think the world would be a better place. Oh, and now we have the MPACE update.
All right, thanks, Melina. That's a good segue into, you know, we're in another election year. It seems like they are just constantly rotating election cycles. But as Melina said, there's a lot of issues that we know are impacting our clients, our systems that we work in, our ability to practice, whether that's telehealth, licensure, reimbursement rates. All of these things depend on ultimately who is in office and can we get support for the things that are important to social work and our value system. One of the things that makes NASW different than a lot of other nonprofits is we are a 501c6. So we are able to be political, which means we can endorse candidates, we can look at ballot initiatives, we can campaign or get social workers to get out the vote for campaign season. And we can also work on voter registration. We're going to talk about some specific coalitions that we're seeking members to serve on to a little bit later today that are impactful for the election. But our political action committee here in Michigan is called MPACE. It's the Michigan Political Action for Candidate Election. And so really what that means is it's a group of social workers, just like you all. Some of you might be a part of our MPAs who are on here today, who help us decide who we should be looking at supporting or not supporting in any given election cycle. And should we be doing campaign work? Should we be giving financial resources to those campaigns? And also looking at other things that may be on that particular ballot, including ballot initiatives. And as you all know, there's been a lot of petition drives over the last several months. The Reproductive Justice ballot initiative, ballot drive just got the most signatures out of any in Michigan history, or maybe it's even US history. I can't remember what they just put out, but the impact that that can have on getting out the vote and turning out not just our field, but our clients in things that are going to impact them. So, you know, our group has started our endorsements for this candidate cycle. We are looking at kind of pre-primary or folks endorsing for the primary in August, and that date is August 2nd will be the primary this year. And so some of the social workers or folks with BSW or MSW degrees that have been endorsed so far, Felicia Brabeck, State House, Stephanie Chang, Alicia Ghazi Edwin, Justin Hodge, Danny Hoover, Michelle King, Carrie Reingens, and then we know that there are more social workers that are also running across the state. So it's very exciting to see a lot of our own folks start to step into these roles. Social workers have forever been many behind the scenes roles in campaigns as campaign managers, policy writers, campaign staffers, but to kind of move into that forefront space where you're actually at the seat of making decisions and passing policies. We want to have more of those. We're going to be putting together a canvassing event for Senator Chang on July 30th. So any of you in the Detroit area, we would love to have you join us for that. We'll have information hopefully out next week around that event. We anticipate probably about 20 more endorsements to be coming through next week. So please look in your inboxes for that. But if you are a social worker that's running locally, or if you know a social worker that's running for any position here in Michigan, please let us know. We want to make sure to support social workers specifically, but also other candidates who may support our positions as an association. So go ahead and go on to the next slide, and we'll move into talking a little bit about the budget, which I know we sent an email last week, and Melina will give some details about that.
Yeah, so I know the email had a lot of information. This budget was $76.9 billion, which is a major budget in the state of Michigan. And over $1.12 billion of that was allocated to social work related things, which is really cool. And so one of the major things, a few of the major things I've listed on the slide include $10 million in expanding existing loan repayment programs to include behavioral health providers like social workers, which is really great. And then again, we have $5 million for 3 Wayne State-based workforce expansion programs. So here at NASW, we've been working a lot to build the social work workforce. And that's one of the things we really focused on this budget. So it's really great to see a few of those things make it in. We worked with Representative Brabeck. She had an amendment that she put forward that had a lot of our asks in it. If you were keeping up on the newsletters, we talked about those, and they're on the website too. And we can link them in the chat if you're interested in that. And then at the bottom here, they used to have this program for hiring school mental health professionals and nurses, and they made that an annual program. So that will be in the budget every year, which is a really great win for us. Let's see. Yeah, so there was a lot of investments for our social work workforce. There was new money for school safety and teacher recruitment programs, which helps the mental health of children in the schools. There was a lot of funds for mental health organizations. So in the email, I listed all of the organizations that received that funding as well. And yeah, Whitmer said that it'll help grow the workforce in the next year, which is really nice to see that she's also focusing on the workforce. And we have been really excited to get these in, and we have more work to go. I think that's the next slide though. Yes, so for the asks that didn't make it into this budget, we are planning on to make an ask for supplemental budgets, which usually happens in September or December. So we will be using Representative Braybeck's amendment as a template, and we were going to work with our multi-client lobbyists to make those asks into more boilerplate budget language, which will make it pretty easy for them to add it to the budget. So I am getting things around, and I would like us to be all prepared to kind of make some asks and write to our legislators about that in August, kind of.
Yeah, thanks, Melina. You know, one thing that I would just add is one of the things that's been a little bit different this year in not just the budget process, but kind of our legislative advocacy is that there really is more of a bipartisan interest in mental health than ever before. Partially, I think it's COVID related, and that, as you all know in the field, everybody's been dealing with the mental health crisis for 3+ years. You know, everybody's dealt with some sort of grief, loss, anxiety, depression, all the above, right? During this pandemic, and that has affected so many different systems that social workers are tied to, whether that be schools or hospitals or our mental health systems. And so we're seeing this really unique window to create some bipartisan connections on bills, including, I know Melina is going to talk in a minute about our school social work paid internship asks. But as we move forward past the budget that's been released, we really need you all who are in different districts across the state to help us reach out to your local people, because that's ideally how we're going to get things passed and pull folks who maybe don't support all of the stuff we are working on as social workers all of the time, but they're recognizing that their schools in their districts don't have enough social workers, or that there's still an SUD impact in their district. And so who is the field that are in all of these spaces? It's social work. And we know that there are workforce shortages across like every sector right now, including some areas of social work. And so we want to use this moment as an opportunity to expand how we're viewed, how our expertise is viewed across the state and nationally, as well as how do we build relationships with legislators all across the state. And I see Colleen's comment, how do we know if 2.5 million is a lot or if 5 million is a lot? So that's a great question, Colleen. And some of it is going to be dependent on what the line is for. So you all know if your particular agency got $5 million, for many of your organizations, that would be a game-changing sort of number in terms of what it might be allocated for. For some larger systems, $5 million may be to pilot something for a 3-year project, and it may not be that big of a drop in the bucket. And so when we had put our asks forward, it was somewhere around $55 to $60 million for our major proposals that we were pushing forward. So, and for us, those were some game-changing initiatives and asks that we were putting forward this year. So it really kind of depends on what the line item is for. But for most social work and mental health services, anything that's in the multi-millions is going to be a pretty significant step forward.
Yeah, thank you for that addition, Dwayne. And I know it's hard when we're just saying like billions of dollars and millions of dollars to like think about what that really means. So speaking about our other legislative wins, we had the SMART bills go through. So that was the Student Mental Health Apprenticeship Retention and Training Program. So that is payment for mental health and social work interns at schools. So that passed with support from both sides. We were really happy to see that. It went through pretty quickly. And so we are waiting for that to like be official. There's still some question if the governor needs to sign it or if we're just waiting the 90 days and it'll be in effect when the fiscal year ends. So we will update you when that happens. But for that, I know Dwayne and I were getting a lot of questions about what's happening with that, like where do we go forward? And we are planning to talk to the schools of social work because we still kind of have to figure that out. And I think it'll be mostly in relation with how they want to give that information out. Do you have anything to add to that, Dwayne?
Yeah, some of these, take a little bit of time to actually implement. So now that the bills have been passed and the funding mechanism has been initiated, our questions now are more about when will this start? Will it likely be for the fall semester or will it be for the winter semester? How quickly does that funding kick in? And so we're asking those questions and we hope to have clarification on those pieces soon and how particular schools themselves can access this, because likely what the funding will go through is the university who places the student. And so I see your question, Enid, around hired by school districts. It's going to go through the university or the School of Social Work that is placing the MSW student in there, not by the school districts directly. And then I do also see Thomas's question on the statuses of 597, 598 to privatize CMH. So I'm glad you brought that up, Thomas. They are dead. They did not make it into anything. We know, so we can all give a round of applause for those going back to hopefully never resurface. They did not get pushed through in that 714, that Senate bill that we put an advocacy alert out a couple of weeks ago. That bill just did not move forward. So we're glad that did not get added into the budget. And really from our end, we did get asked by the governor's office to send in any veto requests that we had as an association. And I'm happy to say there weren't really any veto requests. So nothing really scary got pushed through in this budget. But part of what Melina was saying as well is there's a lot of money left on the table. I think there was either $6 or $9 billion that still will potentially can be used in supplemental language later this fall. So we didn't get everything we asked for in this budget, but that doesn't mean that we're done fighting for this particular year.
Yes, lots of leeway to still ask for things. Let's see. My computer will work. We'll go to the next slide. There we go. Reproductive justice. So the really hot topic going on right now. Abortion is still legal in Michigan. That's just like top #1 thing. There is the 1931 law that criminalized abortion without any exception. But there is a court case from 1973 that sets precedent to only criminalize health professionals and not the person having an abortion. So that is a good thing to know. However, it's still really scary because there are prosecutors across the state, especially in Jackson County, who say they will not be following the injunction and they will be prosecuting under the 1931 law, which they have prosecutorial discretion. So the state cannot tell them what they can and cannot prosecute. And so we have been and will continue to work with National on our practice guidelines, but for now, just limit, if you're working with someone who is seeking information about having an abortion, just limit what you're putting in the case notes. And we have been having ongoing ethical talks about, do we continue to provide information for our clients so they can be self-determining? And the answer so far has been yes. So that is the update on that. And I know we're all like itching for more information. And I wish I had more information to tell you, but it's really all in the air right now.
And I will put in the chat, there's a couple of webinars that'll be coming up addressing kind of ethical concerns and reproductive justice and how this may impact folks in states like Michigan who were in this kind of limbo area right now in terms of what this will mean. And if it does end up falling back on us as the mental health professionals, what realistically would that mean if someone had a complaint filed against them or a lawsuit against them? Would the Board of Social Work take that up? Would is there protection available for social workers if they are providing information to clients? You know, we see that as best practice, right? You know, our ethics is clients' right to self-determination. So we are in this like ethical gray space right now, ethical and legal gray space. And so we've been working with the governor's office as well as some of our coalition groups to just really provide the most up-to-date resources on that as possible. I did drop a link into the chat, and we're just going to continue to update that page of the website as more things come through, and be on the lookout for more information from us around that too.
Yes. But in positive news, as Dwayne mentioned earlier, the Reproductive Justice for All petition has gathered hopefully enough valid signatures. It's the most that any petition in Michigan has gathered, so that's great. So the next step in that is getting people out to vote for it in the election coming up. And hopefully we'll have more information for you about that, like if you want to get involved, coming up in the next few weeks. Oh, and some national advocacy alerts. National is working on expanding the child tax credit. Woohoo! So the one ask that they have right now is to reach out to your lawmakers to encourage them to co-sponsor the legislation. Oh, that's for the second one. Sorry, I'm just reading this right now. So the second one is protecting social workers in the health profession from workplace violence. Yes, so that is the one that we are asking everyone to reach out and co-sponsor the legislation. All right, code of ethics, our favorite part.
All right, so we've got this fantastic guidepost that we follow as a field called the Code of Ethics. And so for many of us, we never really were informed in our social work education about the process for the Code of Ethics, how it gets updated, who participates in the updating of it. And the answer to that is you all, social workers, are a part of that. And so every 3 years, a voting body of NASW members called Delegate Assembly, every state chapter gets a specific amount of delegates based off of their chapter size. Michigan, we get 9 delegates that vote. Our delegates were elected last year, and then I have been working towards the Delegate Assembly, which will occur in 2023. But during that Delegate Assembly next year, the Code of Ethics will be up for a vote, as well as the NASW bylaws and a set number of policy positions that the association holds. So I wanted to make sure today we at least talked about the Code of Ethics amendments. So between now and July 31, any NASW member can offer amendments to the Code of Ethics. So if you have suggestions, changes, additions, now is the time to submit those. And so you can go onto the Delegate Assembly website. I will put that link into the chat box for everybody as well. And we'll make sure we send out a couple of with a reminder, some of these links for folks too, just so you have them all. But you can go and check out the current list of policies that are going to be up over the next year and a half, as well as if you'd like to review the Code of Ethics or submit any changes, please do that by July 31st. That will not be your last opportunity to make input. This is just time to submit larger amendments. As you can see on the slide, there will be a public comment period between May and July of next year that anyone can go and put in comments based off of the amendments that are submitted and the current version of the Code of Ethics. That's where folks can also just make their comments heard. We will be putting together 2 statewide town halls specifically on all of the policies that will be up for review over the next year and a half. And so we want to make sure our Michigan voices are heard in those policy decisions, because there are a lot of really important pieces that are going to be up in the next delegate assembly. If you go to that link that I dropped in the chat, you can see there's about 20 public and professional policies that will be up for review in the next year. And, you know, all of them are critical to review, and those only get reviewed about once every 10 years each. So we want to make sure that whatever is changing in your practice related to those specific topics, you have some input in. So if you do have particular amendments to the Code of Ethics or the NASW bylaws that you'd like to submit, you can submit those to Mark Willis. It's just mwillis.nasw@socialworkers.org. Or if you want to, if you have questions, you can reach out to me or Melina, and we can point you in the right direction for those as well. Head on to the next slide. And so the other hot topic, Licensure Compact. So hopefully everyone got the email late last week around updates to the Licensure Compact. So if you're not familiar, there's been a national effort to try to coordinate conversations around reciprocity and making licensure easier across state boundaries. We know that since COVID, telehealth has expanded. People have been a little bit more transient, but it is a very complex and complicated issue, as you can imagine, trying to coordinate 50 plus regulatory bodies across the United States, and to get them to kind of agree on anything and somewhat give up power and money is usually not an easy task. So where we're at right now is on Friday, the draft document has been released for public comment. So this is definitely something that we would highly encourage that everybody on this call, please review the draft language. And if you have suggestions, comments, thoughts, please make sure that you to comment on that. There are going to be a few public comment sessions, as well as some review. They're having weekly review sessions right now, so you can sign up for one of those if you want to just get some general information about the compact. But what the compact will do in theory, as drafted right now, is if you are licensed in one of the states that passed the compact, so you've gone through the licensure process in that particular state, you hold a valid license with no disciplinary action, then you can apply to be a part of the compact. So any other state that has passed and signed onto the compact, you would be allowed to practice in. You do not have to get licensed then in all of those states. You are just automatically a part of that compact. You don't have to get the continuing education for all of those different states, just your home state. So it will, if it passed, it will make it much easier for folks to be able to practice in multi-states. Now, we want to make sure that this is done in a way that is equitable across states, that there's not some easy in for somebody to hop through their state's hoops to get licensed in one place. And we want to make sure that there's no issues with how reimbursement rates would be set, and if folks, private insurances would start charging folks less because there's a larger pool of people. So we want to be very careful about this. This really is, and if you look through the compact, it does not include a macro license. There's only, I think, 3 or 4 states that have a macro license. So it's mainly for folks at the clinical level. There also is a bachelor's option, but that is also not a license that is in every state either. So it's gonna somewhat vary depending on what state you're in, if your legislature approves the compact. Right now, there are 8 or 9 similar professions that are going through compact processes or have them, including counselors, psychologists, nurses, medical licensed folks. And so it's not a new process. And so there is some precedent to get this passed. So I'm just reading some of the comments. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So some of what the benefits of a compact would do is eliminate the need for social workers to hold licenses in multiple states. We know that right now that is the process that most social workers have to go to if they want or need to see clients who are in other states. You have to get reciprocity in that additional state, which usually requires a fee, sometimes more fingerprinting, sometimes another exam, and then following those continuing education standards additionally. That would be eliminated. We know it would facilitate telehealth in a much easier way, and that when we had some more open temporary laws during COVID, and we've seen that at least up until now, most of the telehealth expansion has continued, but there's been a lot of talks, especially in certain insurances, about closing that back up. Streamlines the licensing administration for both licensing boards and licensed social workers. So the current process is burdensome for the licensing boards in Michigan. That would be Laura, to bring in people from out of other states and review and regulate all of their licensure rules in whatever state that they're coming from. Allow social workers to expand services, which we always are looking for, and promoting some uniformity and licensing standards. So the other work that we've been doing in Michigan, as well as a lot of the other chapters across the country, is looking at things like implicit bias in the ASWB exam and other sorts of barriers that may exist within the licensing system, and making sure that as we move forward with a compact, should we move forward with the compact, that those questions are addressed to at least our best knowledge as possible at this time. But there's a lot of benefit to a compact at this particular moment in history, and we want to make it easier for social workers to be able to continue to see clients wherever they are. Yeah, and I see the question about the Department of Defense. So part of the reason the Department of Defense is a part of this is licensing compacts within social work already exist within the VA and in military. And so that's partially why the Department of Defense is a part of this. If you are a social worker that works at a VA, which we may have some of you on this call, you only have to be licensed in one state, and you could move to a different VA and still work in that particular state. Or if you're a military social worker, as long as you're working on base, you just have to be licensed in one state, and that will follow you wherever you go. So we know that there already are some wiggle room in how our rules exist across the country, and this compact would just more or less solidify that for the general social work population, as opposed to just the small subset of folks who tend to be working with military folks. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So the four things that you all can put on your radar and agenda for right now as it relates to the compact is read the draft language. Please look through that. We'll be sending out an email likely later this week with some updates too around this. Attend one of the review sessions. So you can see here, starting next week, actually, the Council of State Governments will be hosting weekly review sessions to talk at least about the general nature of the compact. And there are lots of stakeholders that have been involved in this compact. It's NASW chapters, it's various boards in different states, the Clinical Social Work Association, the Council of Social Work Education, and some other folks as well. And so there's been a large group of people who've been working on this behind the scenes to at least get this base language out to folks. There's the feedback survey. Please, after you're done reviewing and attending our review session, add in your feedback. And then we have reached out to the national folks to host a statewide Q&A session. We don't have that date set, so I'm hoping it'll be maybe towards the end of maybe the beginning of fall at some point. So when we do have that, hopefully that'll give time for folks to review and look through in terms of our timeline right now for the compact, they're hoping to have this process start in some states in the later part of 2023. So we still have plenty of time before this rolls out, and so comments can be included. And so that's kind of where we're at on the compact. Yes, we can make sure that the PowerPoint is also available. We'll send out that link when we send out the resources for today. Any other questions about the compact? Feel free to either raise your hand, or if you want to put it in the chat box. I know that this is kind of a hot topic one. All right, well, we can cycle back at the end if there are other questions that come through.
All right, thank you, Dwayne. And so speaking of, I guess this whole thing is like, how can we get involved? We are also seeking more members for some coalitions that we have been asked to join. So as an NASW member, it would be very beneficial for us to have you guys attend some of these coalitions that you have expertise in, and you know, give your opinion and then let us know what's going on. So the two that we are seeking for right now is the Michigan Alliance for Justice and Climate. So that is an environmental group that is working on you know, addressing the physical and economic effects of climate change and the environmental decline. And those meet every other Tuesday from 3 to 4. And then we are also looking for people for the Voting Access for All. That's a coalition working on voting rights, specifically for those who have been incarcerated. And they meet every Friday. So if you are interested in joining either one of those, please feel free to email me, reach out to me, let me know, and I can get you guys connected. And then we have some other committees that we are looking for members. So the Legislative and Social Policy Committee is, you know, the committee within NASW that works on our legislative agenda and talks about issues coming up and how we can take a stand on them and what we can do. We are seeking members, and that is the third Friday of each month from noon to 1. It is this Friday, the 15th. And then we are also looking for members for MPACE. Those meetings are the first Monday of each month from 4 to 5. That has an interest form linked here. Or you can email me, whichever is easier at this point. But both are great committees. We love to see more social workers involved in legislative and political things. So please join us.
Yeah, thanks, Melina. The only thing I would also add to that is one of the goals that we're trying to do as a chapter right now is to make sure that social workers are represented in more spaces. And so part of that is coalition work, part of that is commissions, town hall, or not town halls, commissions, boards, things at the appointed level with the governor's office. We've just submitted about 6 or 7 names of social workers to be appointed to various boards and commissions at the state level. But we want to make sure that your expertise is being used in a larger way too, so we can change some of these systems that we've been talking about all day today. And so as we have opportunities that come up through us, we want to make sure that that's shared within our membership so that you all can really elevate the conversation and be a strong representation for our field in there.
And then one more event. I know Danielle mentioned it at the beginning, but we are having a policy faculty town hall on Thursday, August 11th from noon to 1:30. So this is for any university college policy faculty. Pre-registration is required, and I have a link for that form somewhere that I will also share. Dwayne, I know you have experience with these. This will be my first one, so I'm not really sure what to expect yet.
Yeah, so for any policy or other faculty maybe on this call, this was something we started quite a few years back, but We want to make sure that our schools of social work are engaged in current legislative issues, that students have access to things that are going on across the state, not just nationally. And so this is a good opportunity for any of you who might be associated with a school of social work to participate, or if you have a faculty in mind that you think would be a good person to be a part of this, to please share the information that we'll also be emailing out to folks. But it's also a good way for us at NASW to hear from the schools and the policy faculty directly about what their students are talking about, what are the conversations on campus, what are the local issues that are impacting their students and their faculty. And so we try to do these twice a year. This one will be in August, and then we'll do another one in December before the winter semester. Great. And so we talked a bit about delegate assembly. So here is just a visual representation of your delegates here in Michigan. We've got a great group of 9 social workers from all across the state who will be your voting block in November of 2023 when the delegate assembly meets virtually. There will be about 270 delegates across the country that will vote on those things like the policy positions, the code of ethics, the bylaws that'll up for review. And so our delegates are planning a town hall on September 7th from 6 to 7 p.m. So there will be our first round of policies that will be up for review. I'm just going to drop the topics that will be up for review. We know, well, only half of them will be up, but of about the 20 that I just dropped into the chat, half of them will be up for public comment starting in September. We don't know which of the half yet. So as soon as that happens, we'll send out an email. But we want to make sure that if you are a social worker that has expertise in one of those topic areas, that you're also engaged in helping us review and look at those standards for policy positions. Because as a chapter, when a legislator comes to us and say, hey, do you have a position on this? Or if a news outlet says, hey, we'd love to run a story about social workers' position on X, the answer normally is yes, we have a position. Here are our policy recommendations, and they are compiled into a book called Social Work Speaks. And so these are 20 of the, I don't know, couple hundred policies that are in total in that document. So we will send this link out to folks if you want to be a part of that conversation and meet some of our delegates in September. There'll be a second town hall in April when the second half of those policies come up for review as well.
And then Danielle mentioned as well at the beginning, save the date for our lead Legislative Education and Advocacy Day, Thursday, October 27th. It will be virtual, and we are seeking people who are interested in presenting legislative or advocacy topics. So please email me. Sorry, I can't speak. And then we're also seeking sponsors and exhibitors as well. So we are looking forward to that. It's coming up pretty soon. This will be my first one that I'll be a part of too. So I'm looking forward to learning and being with you all. Woo, we made it. Now we have about 10 minutes for some questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now too, so I can see you all.
Perfect. So feel free to either use the raise your hand function, or if you want to drop questions into the chat. I know there's some questions about Compact still running in here. And so the Compact is complicated, right? You know, trying to make sure that we can have 50 sort of regulatory bodies get into something. And likely what will need to happen is somewhere between 8 and 12 states will have to sign on to a Compact before it will move forward. So if only a couple of states decide to do it, it likely won't happen. And so when we get to the point where we're trying to roll this out sometime next year, it will really be a legislative push to make this happen. It'll have to go through the legislative process. So we will need also buy-in from the Board of Social Work, from Laura. And I know Shelley had put into the chat a comment about the Board of Social Work. So that is another board that we often try to get social workers seated on every year. There are 3 Board of Social Work positions that are open. Usually 2 of them are social workers, and then 1 of them is a public person. So if you've got a social work friendly other professional who might be good in serving in that role, we also want to know that. Shelley, I see your hand waving. Feel free to unmute.
So I also put in the chat that the other state boards look for public members. And when you were talking earlier about social workers getting on boards, just so everyone's aware that you can get on other boards. A social worker could apply to be on nursing, could apply to be on counseling, could apply to be on psychology. And those are really helpful to inform those boards. So, don't think you can only bring your specialty to the social work board. You can bring it to any board, and I can't even tell you how many. The state has a lot of boards. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, and people really could apply for those and see if they can't get appointed to them.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Shelley. Especially if you're working in a multidisciplinary setting and you've got expertise, or if you've been working with other sorts of professionals. And I just dropped the link to the Governor Whitmer's appointment, but you can look at the boards and commissions. I mean, there's, I don't know, probably hundreds of them. And you look through it and there's a lot of them, you're like, wow, that's a thing at the state level. Some of them you're like, that's kind of surprising that there's this or this or this or this. But we want to get social workers on as many of those as possible. And some of them, the terms vary. Some of them might be 1-year terms, some of them might be 3-year terms. How they meet might vary, how often they meet might vary. Oh yeah, and I see another comment from Ken in the chat. So there are other things like boards and commissions. There's also task forces that get set up by different departments at the state, whether that's the Attorney General's office or the governor's office, that we seek members to serve on. So right now we have Ken Sherman, who is on today's call, who is our representative to the Michigan Attorney General's Elder Abuse Task Force. And so it's really important for us as an association to have liaisons to all of these different important committees and task forces that go on at the state level, so we can be as informed as we can be, and then relay that back to our members. I know Ken does an amazing job of attending our aging and gerontology group that meets every month and relaying updates in those spaces as well. So as those opportunities come available, some of you who are part of our other committees or work groups may have heard about some of these already, but we want to get to know you all a little bit better too, so we know when we do hear of things, who we should be plucking into these open positions. Colleen, I see your question about CEs. Today is just a regular CE credit. Other questions? I know this was a lot of information today. Yep, I see Zoe's question. There's an LGB issues update under discussion. There is a specific trans topic there. The trans is kind of pulled apart because there's been so many specific policy things that are tied to trans and gender nonconforming issues. And so that one is not up this year. My guess is that will be in the next delegate assembly, but we know that there is intersection. Clearly there's intersection in that. So if there is opportunities to review that and making sure, if folks want access to other parts of Social Work Speaks, if you have questions about that, I will just drop the link to Social Work Speaks. You can order a full copy if you want it. It's a handy guide to have. It's a really good resource, especially for students who are in policy classes, but I just dropped that link into the chat. But yeah, that one, they broke it into 2 segmented ones.
Hey, Dwayne, it's Ken. I have a question. My question centers around the region I belong to, which is 8, and the lack of any CE activity for the last little bit. How can we improve that, or how can we change that? I mean, I know there's been COVID, but even with COVID, we haven't had anything, via Zoom, or as things improve in person, which is kind of frustrating because you have to go to other regions who may be doing things versus your own region.
Yeah, great question. So just so everyone is aware, every one of you is a part of some NASW region. There's 11 regions across the state, and each region has a board representative as well as what we call CCNLI, it's the Chapter Committee on Nominations and Leadership Identification member who is assigned to that region. Our board representative, they are your voice in your region back to our board of directors, and also can help assist in planning and putting on events locally. If there is something that you would want to help organize, and I know, Ken, you've been a part of those in the past too, you can reach out to either that person directly, or if you're having barriers with that person, you can reach out to our board president, who just switched as of July 1. Our new incoming board president is Fatima Salman. She's a wonderful social worker. I believe she actually might even be in your region, Ken. So that would be a great way. And we know that during COVID, everything switched to virtual for a couple of years, and we're just starting to dip back into in-person regional events. And we hear from you all more and more that we want more social events. We're looking to get connected again, kind of sick of staring at a screen for everything. And I feel you all there. So you can I'll drop into the chat also the link to our board of directors. We'll be updating. All of the new folks took their offices July 1. So actually our new folks aren't on our web page yet, but that will be there by the end of this week for folks. And you can reach out to our board president or your specific regional person for additional guidance in that. Okay, I saw a question on here. Oh, yep. So question from Linda. So when do you expect the governor to reach out to those of us who express interest in being appointed to boards? That's a great question. Somewhat it depends on how long that they have the board openings available for. We don't often know that at NASW. We're not privy to that information. So sometimes they'll just appoint folks that we recommend forward without even telling us, and then you'll just get a notification in like your email, or they'll put it out in the governor's one of her weekly email blasts about appointments made. If we hear something, well, actually, as long as I've been at NASW, we have never been communicated to before the individual if somebody's been appointed. So you'll hear probably before we hear if you get appointed to one of those committees.
Joanne, I know there's one more question about the compact in the chat.
Would you mind reading that question?
Yes. The FAQ says it promotes continuity of care when social workers or clients relocate. How does it help continuity of care when social workers relocate if they have to switch their home state and go through relicensure anyway?
Yeah, it's a good question. So that would be one that I would bring to one of their next review sessions. I don't know the answer to that question. So there may be some stipulations. Maybe there is a way that it makes it easier to have reciprocity if you're in a state that has a compact. And when we know more information about that, but I mean, that's an important clarification to get as we move forward, right? It would be much more helpful for folks if that process was easier. And I would imagine if you are in a state that has a compact agreement, that getting reciprocity in that state, should you move your home base, would be no problem, or shouldn't be a problem. And I know somebody had said earlier that California has some really strong requirements for licensure, and so it would make that particular state some states may be hesitant and may not be interested in signing onto a compact. Just in reality, Michigan has been a state that has not had compacts or allowed for compacts for most of our history. And it's only been in the last couple of years, partially because of COVID, where that has begun to chip away a little bit. And so it's still a bit of an uphill battle should we want to move this forward in Michigan. And it's getting all the players at the table to kind of agree on how to move this forward. It's the schools, it's the Board of Social Work, it's Laura, it's you all, it's our organizations to really understand how this would impact our work in the long run. I see Danielle put the eval into the chat. So please make sure to click on that before you check out of here today. We're at our end of time. Melina, do you have any closing thoughts?
Nope. Thank you all for being here. Please keep watching the email updates. We have a lot of stuff to send out, so keep us. I hope to see you guys soon, and I'll let you know if anything else comes up. Thank you.